The summer of Supergirl has arrived and Supergirl is finally out. I've seen it and I have a lot of thoughts. So like this video and subscribe because we are going to get into it with spoilers. Now, if you haven't seen the movie yet, please go check this out because it is a lot of fun. It is filled with action, and don't believe what these crazy people are saying online about Millie Alcock not being a good fit for Supergirl, this being feminist propaganda, or it not being good because she's not smiling and making a home-cooked meal throughout the movie. With this being the second big movie in the DCU and following Superman, with it both being involved with the Super family, there were some big shoes to fill. And I'm very conflicted on this movie. I mean, I think there are some high highs and some low lows, but one of the biggest things I know is that Millie Alcock kills it as Supergirl. It is crazy watching everything unfold and seeing people highlight Jason Momoa as Lobo when Millie Alcock has done such a fantastic job. Yes, Jason Momoa is great as Lobo, but he's been playing Lobo as Aquaman and other characters in movies for years. We knew seeing the main man in this movie was going to be spectacular, and Jason Momoa really lives up to that hype, but I am very impressed with Millie Alcock as Supergirl. Her punk rock vibe, that angstiness, and the levels of compassion she has with her experience in Krypton throughout this movie is very evident, and I think you really connect with it as an audience member. It is always so fun going to these movies with people who do not really know the DCU or lore about characters like Supergirl or Lobo and seeing what they think without all the comic lore. And overall, for people who don't know these characters or haven't read the book, they really like it. But that's a little bit of my issue. So let me get into my scoring and how I feel about this movie, because like I said, I'm very conflicted. To a level, I understand this is not a one-to-one adaptation of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which I need to say right now is one of my top 3 favorite comic books of all time. One of the few comic books I got emotional while reading. And I know a lot of people hate on Tom King and the writing, but this book is really powerful. Like seriously, if you have not read the Woman of Tomorrow book, I really recommend you read it, whether you've watched the movie or not. Some of the elements that I really loved about the book that I was expecting in this movie are the cosmic themes, which the movie does very well, and we'll get to that. Kara's overall journey and relationship with Ruthie, and I love the references to Superman, how Superman is not very prevalent in the book. It is just about Kara, Ruthie, and Krem. Of course, other highly notable aspects of this book are the artwork by Bilquis. It's just so incredible. I mean, when I first read this book, there were very few comic books in general that had this level and detail of the artwork. I mean, you can flip to almost any page and the art in this looks like something you could frame on your wall. Really detailed, immersive art, and honestly, I think the writing pairs very well with this. Say what you want about Tom King, but to me, this is not a miss. But this is where things get difficult with the movie, because yes, it's not a one-to-one adaptation, but they were heavily marketing this book for the movie. I mean, this is the IMAX exclusive comic I got, and it is clearly referencing the comic. And they take some big swings in this movie and remove some key aspects of the book that I don't fully know how I feel about yet. Everyone's gonna say, well, don't compare it to the comic. It's a different take than the comic. It's in the DCU. Yeah, but they're selling the comics, they're promoting the comics, the writers, and doing so much promo around Woman of Tomorrow. And I think if you're gonna go to that level of the adaptation, it needs to either be a one-to-one or really live up to the hype of the book. And I love DC. My name is DC Dusty, but I need to be real here. I think DC knew going into this that it was not on the same level. Whether we're talking visually or just the story as a whole, it does not have those same themes, which is really upsetting to me because I connected so much with the book, but I still had a really good time with this movie. And I don't think it's a terrible second installment for the DCU. When you think about the second installment of the MCU, like The Incredible Hulk, I think we're off to a pretty strong start. One of the highest highs of this entire movie is that cosmic element, is how we are not spending a lot of time, or really any time on Earth. We're going to different planets, we're on buses, the aliens are weird. I loved that scene where Kara is in the bar and the alien is flirting with her. Like, those elements really felt Star Wars-like to me and just super cosmic and fun. A lot of people complaining do not know who Kara is, but the element of it being her birthday, her being drunk, and just all the madness and dancing with crypto, I thought was super cool. The visuals I'm also mixed on, because there are certain scenes that do look in some way ripped out of the comic. It looks colorful and fun, but other ones that look a little bit grayish and weird. Honestly, if the whole movie would have been gray, or if the whole movie would have been colorful, that would have been better for me, because there was moments where I was really feeling the atmosphere and some moments where I was a little bit rocky on it. One part of this movie I think almost everyone can agree on is that the action is engaging and dynamic. Whether it's Supergirl, Lobo, Ruthie, Krem, whenever the action takes place in this movie, it really packs a punch and feels fitting for a character like Supergirl or Lobo with how much power they have. Honestly, there was aspects to the action in this movie that I enjoyed more than Superman. On some level, yes, I was more engaged with James Gunn's Superman, but the action in this felt more fitting for a Kryptonian, which leads me right into Krypton and the backstory of Krypton in this, which I think is really interesting, not just for Kara and Clark, but the broader DCU. I am never trying to have a definitive take or cast judgment before seeing the movie, and a lot of people were complaining about how Krypton looked, and I thought it looked fantastic. Yes, it feels like an advanced society, but it also, through Kara's lens, feels very homey. You see aspects of nature with trees, or Crypto's little appearance was was so cute. So that entire arc, yeah, it was really deep and meaningful. I didn't get as emotional as I did with the book, but I think they really nailed that Krypton flashback scene. I kind of wish we would have gotten it all of once instead of these different flashbacks throughout the movie. I think it would have flowed better, which leads me to the pacing of this movie. It just felt a little bit off for me. There was rumors that a lot of content was cut from this, and I definitely think that's the case, and it's a similar complaint to what I had with Superman, where I think we could have had more scenes and more moments for us to breathe and really just feel like we were in the room with these characters. It does feel a little rushed, and there's odd cuts, like when Lobo gets captured by the brigands, where you don't see what happens that leads you feeling kind of confused, or like you turned your head and missed something. I really felt this way about the pacing when we're introduced to Ruthie and her family in this terrible scene that happens with Krem, which, listen, I think knowing how much I connected with this scene in the book, it really would have resonated with me in the movie, but it felt very generic, which leads me to the entire arc of Krem in this movie. He just feels like a very basic bad guy. Some people were saying that Krem is like that in the book, but I think he's more basic in the sense of he's an agent of chaos similar to the Joker. He's just going around doing bad deeds just to do the bad deeds. That kind of makes you question his character and wonder, why is he really doing this? Why isn't there something deeper that makes him want to commit this violence and evil? And on that same level, while I love the performance of the girl who plays Ruthie, I don't feel like we really capture how much it meant to have her entire family killed. Which, by the way, her entire family does not get killed in the book. It is just her father, which I actually think is more heartbreaking. I think they could have done a better job at showing this dynamic between Kara and Ruthie and how much they both were struggling with their own separate things. Ruthie losing her father and Kara losing her planet. Also, just the struggle with Kara that she's not her cousin and she is a little bit rougher around the edges, and Ruthie's search for, who do I want to be? Do I want to be this killer who got revenge against my father, or do I want to go on a new path? That was such an interesting element of the book for me, and I love this sisterhood dynamic of these two characters going across the galaxy together, and aspects of this in the movie did feel lost and did feel very rushed. I felt like we could have spent so much more time going to planets, figuring out what made them tick, and the planets did feel a little bit basic after a good amount of time. Like, I love the elements of different planets and political problems going on all throughout the galaxy in the book, but with this, it's really just human trafficking, which I know is very dark, and that sounds insane for me to say it's just human trafficking, but after a while, it felt like this basic explanation for why the brigands were evil, and there's so much more to them than that in the book. Throughout Woman of Tomorrow, having Kara and Ruthie go to different planets, being a little bit behind the brigands and seeing all the destruction they leave is so powerful, and it builds momentum as we get to that final fight between Kara, Krem, and Ruthie. I know I am comparing this movie a lot to the book, and I love the book so much, but I was really fine with the movie not copying the book as a one-to-one or having different moments, especially when they announced that they were bringing Lobo in. I was like, okay, this is not going to be a one-to-one adaptation, and we're going to have a lot of fun with this take. But I was only fine with that if they had similar deep character moments, which I just don't think the movie lived up to that. Which this did scare me a little bit for the broader DCU, knowing that Anna Nogueira, the writer of this movie, is going to write Wonder Woman and possibly Teen Titans. I don't want DC to hold back. I want DC to take big swings. That's what DC has kind of been known for. Yes, the DCEU had its problems. Or even look at the Dark Knight trilogy. That was a big swing and something very different in the superhero space. And if James Gunn wants to do what he wants with the DCU the way he's saying, with movies feeling like different comics and creators having their own control, I think we really need to hit the nail on the head with that. I can't believe I'm forgetting some of these moments, but I knew we weren't going to get, Kara riding the horse and racing against time in this, but I was hoping for moments that were similar. And yes, Jason Momoa as Lobo was really cool. Dude, I loved Jason Momoa as Lobo, but I don't know if this was the right pick for his first appearance in the DCU. It should really be focused on Kara and Ruthie, and I really enjoy the moments with Lobo. Like, every moment on screen, I was laughing, and I actually like the more comedic aspects of him because I think Lobo is really funny, but I felt like he would be so much better as a quick cameo in Man of Tomorrow, or to have his own project with more intention toward the character. However, I will say the designs for these characters, like I said, from the aliens to Lobo and Supergirl's suit, was fantastic. Krem aside. Oh my gosh, when they released these trailers, I was so mad about Krem. Why does he need to look scary? Why does he need to look so goth? When I first read the comic, I thought we were going to get to an issue or some big reveal that Krem had another kind of a body or some kind of power that transformed him, but that wasn't the case. What makes Krem so scary is he just looks like a regular man. It goes to show you that you don't have to look scary to be evil. Krem is kind of attractive in the comics, and I think if they would have introduced that in this movie, it would have brought another layer of depth to the villain, which many people are saying doesn't have a lot of depth. I understand the creators want this movie to feel different than the book, but when the book does some of these things so well, it's really interesting why they would want to change that. Honestly, I was open to liking Krem's design more if the character was done better justice, but just seeing the lack of depth with the character really didn't allow me to connect. So let me get one thing straight. This movie is not nearly as bad as everyone is saying it is. I would and definitely will see Supergirl many more times, but it's not a perfect movie. I liked it, I didn't love it, and there was a lot of room for growth. And listen, let's be real. In 2026, with the climate we're in, I do think we need to take very bold moves with superhero movies, but I also think it's okay to just have a basic fun superhero movie. I personally enjoyed this movie more than I did Blue Beetle, and them being kind of in the same realm, I don't think it's much of an issue. Not every project is going to be Superman, not every project is going to be The Dark Knight, and I'm okay with that as long as these projects have a distinctive take and personality, and I felt like that was lacking from Supergirl. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, and I don't want to be just too negative, because I totally understand how this movie is 50-50 for people, how somebody could go leaving this movie really loving it, and somebody else could not enjoy it as much, which, by the way, that is okay. It is okay to have different takes than everybody else. It's okay to like a movie that some people hate. It blows my mind seeing social media comments or people online talking about how you have to like this movie because everybody else likes it. That's not how it works. That's not how having an opinion and taste works, and it drives me crazy. If you love Supergirl, but the rest of the world thinks it sucks, that's great. Love Supergirl. I do not want the comic book superhero space to get to a point where we're just blindly following what everybody else says. Have your taste, have your opinion, have your personality with how you enjoy watching these comic book projects. In the same way, you can love the movie, but it's also okay to enjoy it and have critiques. Because DC is trying to do something new with this expansive universe and is trying to maybe compete with Marvel, I think people are expecting really high highs, like 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s from this. And listen, we're just getting started here. There's still a lot to flesh out and learn. We haven't even been introduced to Wonder Woman or Batman yet, so I still have a lot of hope for the DCU. With that being said, I really was having so much fun watching the movie, and there wasn't key moments where I was really upset with the movie up until the end when we went to the planet with the kryptonite sun. This is one of my favorite moments from the book. It is so deep and grounded. The dynamic with Kara and Ruthie is so powerful, feels cosmic, comic booky, and it is filled with action. Like, the stakes in the book at this moment are so high, and they keep getting higher as you build to this final confrontation with Krem. Again, the movie can do something different if they want to have their own fun take, but nothing really happened on the kryptonite planet to me. The twist, and if you haven't read the book, I won't say the twist, of the action and monsters or creatures that appear on this planet are so cool, and it's such a great representation of Kara's strength and how a lot of people think that Kara is stronger than Superman. That scene in the movie did not reflect that well. If anything, there are scenes throughout this movie that, in my opinion, show that Kara seems weaker than Clark, which for the character, I really don't think that's true. I love that line from the trailers and in the movie that he sees the good in everyone and I see the truth. Hearing that line in the trailer, I was so excited for these iconic, gritty lines we get from Kara, and I felt a little bit underwhelmed with what we got in the movie. I keep saying this, it just lacked some of the depth. It didn't compel me the way I wish it would have compelled me. Which, yes, it was a great movie, but it does suck because I love Millie Alcock and know they can put on a fantastic performance with these deep character moments. There is this scene toward the end of the book where Kara explains to Ruthie that she was hoping to teach her this lesson about revenge, but she couldn't teach her that because she hasn't gotten over Krypton. And I just have chills thinking about it. I love this moment from the book and was so excited I withheld telling friends about this moment because of how powerful it was, and the way they capture it in the movie felt so lackluster. Again, why didn't you just copy from the book? Word for word, it's so powerful. Why are we doing this? The biggest things people are saying with this movie is it felt generic, and I really feel that on the Kryptonite Sun planet. A lot of these action scenes, I think due to DC being worried about the movie release, were already shown in the trailer. So when we get to this final action scene, I was like, oh, I already saw these crazy kicks, these laser eye moments in the trailer. I know a lot of movies do this, but man, take some notes from Spielberg with Disclosure Day and don't show a lot so people are surprised. And lastly, I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, my final complaint is going to be, spoiler alert, the death of Krem. Obviously, they can't copy what they did with the book because there's very weird aspects of time, but at the same time, as I was watching it, I was thinking, couldn't Ruthie live on a planet that ages her faster and Kara could come visit her and they could recreate that moment from the book? I don't know. Again, it just didn't feel as meaningful the way that Krem died, and I feel like it was kind of a strange dynamic for Kara as Supergirl and the lesson she's trying to teach Ruthie. This entire time, which I think it's like 3 months or a month in the comic, but it's like 3 days in in the story. Kara's telling Ruthie not to get revenge and that it won't make her feel better, but Kara gets to have that revenge. It not only feels hypocritical and selfish, it just feels strange and out of character for Kara. Again, it makes sense how they do it in the book, but the way it's perceived in the movie does feel confusing for the character, especially the big twist in the book, and spoiler if you haven't read it, that Crypto never needed the elixir. That moment when reading the book is so jarring and shocking, it feels like an insane twist. But that not being the case here, feels like the mission is less about Ruthie and more about Kara, which again, doesn't have the same character depth and compassion that we wanted from the book. I had issues with that scene with Krem. I had issues with the dynamic of Supergirl and Krem and how she killed him. I don't know, I just remember Superman left me wanting more, but in such a good way. I was so happy with what we got. I watched that movie like 7 times in theaters and was so excited to see more of the DCU, but this movie left me wanting more in the opposite way. I feel like they left so much stuff out and they could have gone into so much more detail to make this movie something special. I think Tom King and Bilquis Evely deserve that to have this iconic book depicted on the big screen. It should have been done well. With that being said, if this is considered a DCU flop, then I think we're in really good hands for the future of this universe. I think after a couple more watches, I can get past the book problem and enjoy this movie for what it is. It feels like a one-off fun space adventure. The performances are great. I can't wait to see Millie in Man of Tomorrow. The visuals, costume design, CGI was really good. And while it wasn't everything that I wanted, I'm still very excited for the DCU. And unlike other flops with other universes, I hope we see more of Supergirl. Like I said, overall, I'm very conflicted. I love DC. I really like this movie. I had a lot of fun going to see it, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. And again, I think that's okay. Okay, my score for Supergirl, I'm going to give it a 6-7. Say what you want in the comments about that. It might go more to a 6-5. It could even hit a 7 in time. I'm still debating how I felt about it. I think overall, leaving the theater, just knowing how much fun I had and how much I enjoyed these performances is a very good thing. Doesn't feel strong enough to be a 7, doesn't feel weak enough to be a 6, so I think a 6-5 would be proper here. But what did you think of the movie? Did you enjoy Supergirl? What were the standout performances? What did you like? What did you not like? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want to support this channel, like the video and subscribe for more of this content. I will be back in the theater to see more of Supergirl because listen, we only get like 1 or 2 times to see these movies on the big screen, and it's really special in that environment. Go see Supergirl, be kind to each other.